Hawks are flying high with the new depth on the new roster, but something's about to have them plummeting to the earth. Good day, and welcome back to another one of these. My name is Jackson, and today we're talking about the Atlanta Hawks and a very big issue that I don't think enough people are talking about when it comes to this team, because yes, they do have a lot of depth, but they have fuck all experience. Now, when you go through this team's roster, they probably have one of the deepest talent-wise rosters in the league. I mean, they basically at every position, they have someone who is at least somewhat capable of being on an NBA hardwood. But one thing that they are lacking is that outside of two players that have proper playoff experience, not really anyone else in this roster has seen playoff basketball. And those two players are Rajon Rondo, who obviously has won 2 championships, but is also getting considerably older. And as we've seen, only ever turns it on in the playoffs. And who knows if he's going to be able to do that again this year. It's something that you don't really want to be banking on every season. So we'll see how that turns out. But you just sort of hope that he has that leadership and he's able to sort of give some wisdom to these younger players, especially Trae Young and Bogdan Bogdanovic, Kevin Huerter and Chris Dunn, all these sort of younger guards that I think that he could definitely rise up under his tutelage. But then the only other person on this roster that has any reasonable playoff experience is Clint Capella. And he's not exactly a focal point of this team's sort of plan either. I mean, the only thing he's really a big piece on is protecting the rim. And this team isn't a very strong defensive team outside of a handful of players like DeAndre Hunter and Chris Dunn. And you can also put Rajon Rondo in that list because whilst he is getting a little bit slow and a little bit older, he still is a good defender. But you do have these on the cusp of all defensive team players. Like I definitely see all defensive team in DeAndre Hunter's future. And Chris Dunn, I think, was snubbed last season. He should have gotten it. But that's a different conversation. But then the only other person here who has actually any playoff experiences is Gallinari, who has only ever gotten to the first round. So yeah, you can see that there's just this massive gaping hole of experience this team just doesn't have. And when it comes to playoff basketball, experience is worth its weight in gold, because when it comes to playoff basketball, it's all about adapting. It's all about taking what's in front of you and making sure you make the right decisions. And if you haven't been in those situations before because of the intensity of playoff basketball, you're not going to really know how to react or what to do when the opposing team completely changes its game plan mid-play and you've got to sort of work on the fly, especially when you have guys like Trae Young, John Collins, and Gallinari, who are just completely and utterly defensive liabilities. They'll be able to be absolutely abused by opposing teams. I mean, let's just say that they get the 6th seed and Boston gets the 3 seed, so they go up against each other. Kemba Walker will be able to have a field day being guarded by Trae Young, and if he's not being guarded by Trae Young, you might have Jaylen Brown running the shooting guard, because there's really no place for them to hide Trae Young, but he's someone that they need on the floor for a considerable amount of minutes. So there's always going to be this defensive hole on this team, especially because he has no experience playing playoff basketball, that there's no real way that he's going to know how to hide himself on the defensive end. And then you've got the same thing for John Collins, the same thing for Kevin Huerter, same thing for Bogdan Bogdanovic. I mean, the bloke's been on the Kings who haven't made the playoffs in 100 years. So you've got all these issues just when it comes to understanding the intensity of playoff basketball that I think will definitely hinder this team when it comes to them doing anything. So, I mean, I'm high on this team, don't get me wrong. I think that they have an incredible depth to this roster and that they should be a very strong team in the regular season. But I think that's all they're going to be, is a strong regular season team who has a few upsets on like the Bucks and the sort of heavyweights in this conference, like the Nets and the Sixers and all the others. But they're going to get to the playoffs, and let's just say they go up against the Raptors, who have probably the greatest adjustment scheme when it comes to playoff basketball. They're going to be abused, and they're going to basically shine a light on every single deficiency of this roster. So I definitely see this team, regardless of where they end up in the playoff picture, being a first round exit. I mean, they could be the 3 seed, and I could still see the 6 seed kicking them out because of just the sheer lack of experience that this team has. But yeah, so this is definitely one of those things that we're going to have to wait and see. But I do want to say that I am quite high on the talent level of this team, and I think that the young core of this team is definitely understated when talking about young cores around the league, because a young core of Trae Young, who is an incredibly devastating offensive point guard, and we'll leave the fact that he's one of the worst defenders in the league to the side for a bit. Yeah, Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's been locked down for a couple of years now, who's just an all-round good player. I mean, his defense is lacking, but he's competent at that end. He's not a liability, but he's exactly not someone you're going to ask to guard someone on the last possession of a game. You have DeAndre Hunter, who, as I said before, I think is going to be an all-defensive type player in years to come. You've got John Collins, who's one of the more versatile offensive fours. The Gallinari signing still doesn't really make much sense to me, especially signing him for so much money to be a sixth man. It's just a little odd, and you definitely can't play him at the 3 because the bloke's as slow as an 80-year-old man. So you're not going to really want him to try and guard guys like LeBron or even guys like Jaylen Brown or these smaller guards who have been moved up into the 3. This is not going to work. And then you have probably the guy that I'm really more interested in on this team is, and forgive me for most likely mispronouncing this name, Onyeka Okongwu. Let me know if I said that right or wrong. I think that he definitely has a lot of upside as being one of these sort of tiltering big men that slides between the 4 and the 5. And it should be very interesting to see him develop along with this incredibly young core. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.